Hey guys, so today we are going to be reviewing for our reading test. So you are going to be responsible for completing a reading assessment. And this is, in fact, the article that you will be assessed over. So what we're going to do today, which is something I haven't done yet, but I wanted to do this time just because of the importance of this topic. This is a very overarching topic of argumentative writing, and we've talked about a lot of different things that fall under that umbrella of argumentative writing. And so I just want to kind of take you through this. This is going to be an assignment, and the great thing is that you can use what we do together to help you through your assessment. Okay, so this is the Unit 2 reading test review. So the directions are to read the text and answer the questions that follow. Use the highlighted evidence to help you respond to the questions. So this is an opinion piece. Anytime we are reading an article, you need to read everything, right? So the title matters. The byline at the bottom matters. The pictures, of course, matter. Okay, so the title of this article is Emoticons Aren't Ruining Language, They're Revolutionizing It by Lauren B. Collister. The conversation adapted by UCLA staff on June 18th, 2020. So you also want to look at the pictures. And right now, the pictures are a little bit small, right? So what you see there are speech bubbles filled with emoticons, and they indicate the different facial expressions and emotions of each silhouetted individual in this illustration. Okay, so obviously we are talking about emoticons, and that doesn't necessarily always mean an emoji. Okay, and we're going to talk about that here. All right, so you also want to read this. This isn't a mistake. So she also included this in her article, and it says, if you can read this, then you are well versed in text speak, if you will. Okay, so it says text messages are running language, and then right after that, she put an asterisk, which signifies that she's correcting a mistake, and she spells ruining. And then she says, LOL, comma, JK, exclamation point, smiley face, right? So laughing out loud, just joking, smiley face. So let's look at what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the entire article first, and then we're going to talk about the questions on the side. And I'm going to help you through those questions, okay? All right. In many casual discussions of language and the internet, it's common to hear about how text speak is ruining language. Some people argue that technology has made us lazy about how we speak and write. Major media outlets have bemoaned the ways in which people communicate using technology. Of course, language does not or does change when it's used to text or write messages online. Text speak is an evolution of language. It's even the focus of a field of linguistics called computer mediated communication, CMC. This field is dedicated to the study of interaction facilitated by technology like computers, mobile phones, and tablets. So a linguist studies the science behind language. So they have a new field of linguistics called computer mediated communication. Contrary to the idea that these innovations are corrupting language, CMC demonstrates a creative repurposing of symbols for technology. These swift and clever evolutions illustrate the flexibility of language and its capacity to communicate nonverbal meaning. Change doesn't mean decay. People have been complaining about language being ruined for as long as they've been writing and speaking. In a TED Talk, linguist John McWhorter shared stories of people complaining about language change through the ages. In AD 63, for example, a Roman scholar complained that students of Latin were writing in an artificial language. In fact, this writing was a new language that would become French. Similarly, in 1871, the then president of Harvard University said bad spelling, incorrectness, as well as inelegance of expression in writing, ignorance of the simplest rules of punctuation are far from rare among young men otherwise well prepared for college studies. Future U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt was a student at Harvard in the 1870s. A biographer of Roosevelt noted that the future president supported the revision of American English spelling rules, many of which we still use today. These include changing the -re endings to er in words like center. In British English, it's spelled center with the re, and changing our to or in words like color. British English still spells color colur. The emoticon is more than a face. Today, people are able to communicate rapidly using a wide variety of tools and technologies. Perhaps no linguistic development better indicates changes in the ways we communicate than the popular emoticon. The emoticon colon followed by a parenthesis is a visual representation of a smiley face turned sideways. Although an emoticon may look like a smile, a frown, or any number of facial expressions, it doesn't really represent a face. Instead, it's intended to convey a feeling, such as I'm happy or just joking. The very first use of an emoticon is accredited to Scott Fahlman, a computer scientist at Carnegie Mellon University. In a 1982 email, Fahlman suggested using the colon hyphen parentheses as a way to indicate a joke in a text communication. In this legendary email, he also used the first instance of a frown emoticon. Emoticons that represent these feelings are what linguists call discourse particles. These are little pieces of language that offer information about the tone of the statement. In a study of instant messaging, scholar Xiaoping Luo from the Chinese Culture University in Taiwan described emoticons as quasi-nonverbal cues. In other words, they look like words, but they perform the functions of a nonverbal cue, like a hand gesture or nod. Symbols clarify meaning, help conversation flow. Individual symbols can add meaning to a message or express meaning all on their own. They serve a different purpose than emoticons. For example, have you ever seen someone fix a typo in a message with an asterisk and then have the asterisk by asterisk? Sometimes we correct ourselves when we're talking aloud, a practice known as conversational repair. We might say, sorry, I meant, or I actually meant, when we make a mistake in what we said out loud. This conversational move has made its way into online written language, where that correction is reduced to a single symbol. The asterisk signals a repair of an error in written language, saying, instead of saying, oops, I misspelled asterisk in my previous sentence, people can simply put an asterisk before the corrected word. That's not the only use of the asterisk. A pair of asterisks around the word or a phrase can indicate emphasis. This style has given way to words in all caps in repeated letters to show intensity and emphasis. Linguist Deborah Tannen and communication scholar Erica Derricks have noted this in their research. Tannen provides an example of a text message that uses multiple styles to convey an intensely apologetic, sincere tone. Jackie, I'm so sorry. I thought you were behind us in the cab and then I saw you weren't. I feel so bad. Meanwhile, punctuation marks like hyphens and periods suggest a change in voice and tempo. One example is the ellipsis, or the three dots, which can indicate a tone of voice that is trailing off or hesitating. Here's an example from a conversation in the popular online role-playing game World of Warcraft. So, since we live in the same city, do you want to meet up sometime? A single symbol can relay a whole message. A single symbol can also be an entire message on its own. Linguist Susan Herring writes that a single question mark can be an entire message that indicates the user is confused or does not know what to say. In other words, a question mark does the job of asking for clarification in a single keystroke. Similarly, a single exclamation point as a message can illustrate surprise and excitement. You can repeat either of these symbols to show an even greater level of surprise. Consider this exchange in which B uses nothing but symbols to express reaction to A's statement. So, I have some good news, A says. B simply adds a question mark. A says, I got a raise today. B simply puts an exclamation point. A says, and it came with a promotion. B includes 3 exclamation points to indicate excitement. So far from ruining language, these examples indicate how people can now communicate complex feelings in a simple, streamlined manner. This kind of change is perfect for our modern, fast-paced world. Okay, so that is the end of the article. And if you look at this other indicator down here, it says Lauren Collister is a member of the Linguistic Society of America. The opinions expressed in this article are those of the author. They do not necessarily represent the views of Newsela or its editors. Okay, so we do know that Lauren Collister is a member of a linguistic society. All right, so after reading that article, okay, the argument or the overall purpose of this article, okay, so we're looking at it and we're thinking, okay, what was this author's purpose? Remember, when we're talking about author's purpose, we want to include two, plus we want to include clarifying details, okay? So the purpose that I took from this article was the purpose of the article is to persuade the audience that emoticons aren't ruining the English language, right? They are better for communication than written text. So the purpose of this article is to persuade the audience that emoticons aren't ruining the English language, but they are better for communication than written text. All right, so let's look at question number 1 here in the column. So when you do this, you are going to actually answer these questions on under each one of these categories. So you need to listen, and if you need to replay this video, you can. Okay, so based on these two sentences, who would the intended audience be? So the two sentences here are: in many casual discussions of language and the internet, it's common to hear how text speak is ruining language. Some people argue that technology has made us lazy about how we speak and write. So the intended audience of this piece would be basically anyone who's interested in learning how emoticons have changed the way that we use language. Okay, so the intended audience would be anyone who is interested in learning how emoticons have changed the way we use language. All right, now let's look down at question number 2. Based on this sentence, why are emoticons better for communication than written text? Okay, so these swift and clever evolutions illustrate the flexibility of language and its capacity to communicate nonverbal meaning. So basically, it's saying that it allows you to communicate nonverbally feelings quickly, and that's why it's better. That's why it's a better form of communication than written text. Number 3, so it says, what is the counter argument addressed at the beginning of this section? So change doesn't mean decay. People have been complaining about language being ruined for as long as they have been writing and speaking. All right, so the counter argument is that, yeah, people have been complaining about this for a long time. So the counter argument would be using alternative forms of written communication is ruining language. That's what people are saying. So when we went over argument and counter argument the other day, so their argument is that emoticons are not ruining language. So the counter argument is then that emoticons are ruining the English language. Okay. So number 4, the question says, what appeals, ethos, pathos, or logos do you notice in this section? And what makes John McWhorter credible? Okay, so paragraph number 4 or number 4 deals with, this is how the author is appealing to you as an audience. So in a TED Talk, linguist John McWhorter shared stories of people complaining about language change through the ages. In AD 63, for example, a Roman scholar complained that students of Latin were writing in an artificial language. In fact, this writing was a new language that would soon become French. Okay, so in this one, they are appealing to your sense of ethos, right? Your credibility. It is the author supports their claim. It strongly supports the claim by appealing to the credibility of a linguist in providing an example how once criticized variants of language became a new language. Okay, so a linguist is somebody who is a scientist. So that already adds and lends credibility to this argument. Okay, it's appealing to that. And so they do appeal to your ethos or your credibility or the author's credibility, the example's credibility. Okay, and then question number 5, how does the writer address the counter argument in this paragraph? Okay, a biographer of Roosevelt noted that the future president supported the revision of American English spelling rules, many of which we still use today. Okay, so how does the author address the counter argument? He does so by showcasing examples of how languages or how changes in language have evolved into new globally recognized languages. Okay, because in English we don't use the word center with an RE anymore. In our modern English, we don't use the word, we don't spell the word COLLOUR anymore. It's just COLOR, right? But in British English, they still do that. All right, number 6. Based on these sentences, why are emoticons or emojis a better form of communication than written text? So it says the emoticon, a colon followed by a parentheses, is a visual representation of a smiley face turned sideways. Although an emoticon may look like a smile, a frown, or any number of facial expressions, it doesn't really represent a face. Instead, it's intended to convey a feeling. Okay, so the answer here would be that emoticons are intended to convey feelings. Sometimes it's hard to determine tone and feelings in written words, right? Have you ever had a conversation with a friend or a boyfriend or a girlfriend or your parent where they misinterpret your tone, right? It's so much easier if you put a smiley face or a frustrated face so that they could then sense the tone that you have, okay? And then finally, 7, based on this sentence, why are emoticons or emojis better for communication than written text? So individual symbols can add meaning to a message or express a meaning all on their own. They serve different purpose than emoticons. Okay, so this one would be individuals' symbols add meaning to a message. So the overall argument in this article is that emoticons are better for communication than written text. Okay, and so question number, let's see. So the last two for sure are definite evidence from the text that they use to show that emoticons are better for communication than written text. So the symbols can add meaning. That was one of them. Emoticons are intended to convey feelings, right? Where words fail, emoticons are there to relay different feelings and emotions that you can't express written. And then the one about, I think it was number 2 up here, it said swift. Yeah, these swift and clever evolutions illustrate the flexibility of language, right? So these are all evidence from the text that show that emoticons are better for communication than for written text. Okay, so the last one on here, all right, is a short answer question that you will need to answer. And because I've given you pretty much all of the answers up to this point, I want you to try to do this on your own. So I want you to choose an organizational pattern that you noticed in the text and explain how it contributes to the author's purpose. So we know that the author's purpose is to the purpose of the article is to persuade the audience that emoticons aren't ruining the English language. In fact, emoticons are better for communication than written text. So that is the purpose. So what you're going to be doing is going paragraph by paragraph and trying to find an organizational pattern that supports your thinking, all right, that contributes to the author's purpose. Okay? All right. Well, please feel free to watch this as many times as you want. I mean, I gave you the answers, And like I said, you will need to write your answers. So you can go ahead and fill these in. If let's say I come and I enter down here, okay, you can enter down and you can write your text right here in the column. Okay, and so that's what you're going to be doing, and then you're going to submit that assignment. Okay, see, my computer is acting really slow, but this is like you can go ahead and write that under the question. Okay, the only one that you would need to do separate is the short answer question, and you will be doing that in that box. All right, guys. Well, I hope this helps. I hope it was beneficial to you for me to make this video. And again, you can use this video even when you are doing the test. Okay, so it's there for you. Use it. Take advantage of the opportunities that you have because this is a major grade and you need to do well in it. All right, well, I will see you in the next video. Bye.